Hello again and welcome to Arch Eats. My name is George Mahey. Across the table from me today is
Cheryl Bear.
And today, as we record this episode, Thanksgiving 2024 is right around the corner.
And
if you remember last year at this time, we covered turkey and turkey tips and Thanksgiving wines. That was episode 2, if you can believe that. And it's worth a listen or a re-listen. I just listened to part of it.
They've kept us on this long.
We're really good. Yeah, we're a year in. But today we're going to go in another direction, folks, and we're going to talk about our favorite pies. Thanksgiving pies, holiday pies, and where to find them. And we're going to talk to an expert pie baker today.
She's going to make us less intimidated about tackling our own crust.
Absolutely. And we're going to finish up today with some advice to restaurants about how to sell more pie and more desserts for that matter. This episode of Arch Eats is sponsored by the Train Shed Restaurant. But first, as we always do, we're going to do what we can't stop thinking about. And yours is kind of going to bring a tear to my eye, I think.
Mine makes me a little sad. I'm not going to lie about that. So I attempted to go to Frank and Helen's last night. It's been a part of my life for the entirety of it. I honestly think it's the first restaurant I ever went to in my entire life as an infant because my grandmother lived right down the street from it. As many people know, Frank and Helen's is closing in a couple of months. Their landlord has decided she wants to do a different concept in the space. They can't find another place to go. So goodbye, Frank and Helen's.
As of December 8th.
As of December 8th. So it brought a tear to my eye. We actually didn't end up going because there was a line out the door. It was Sunday, probably about 5, early on in the evening. Line out the door. You couldn't even find a spot. You know how people take over that McDonald's parking lot next to it, all around. People were just lined up everywhere for a taste of it. And it just breaks my heart so much that yet again, we're faced with another institution that we have to say goodbye to. And it's like losing a part of your family. It's so special. And so I can't stop thinking about having to get my last chicken spadini, roasted chicken, and of course, the creamy garlic dressing in. And I highly encourage anyone who feels the same way to give it a try.
And it's sad because the building has been sold. The Frank and Helen's owners have not been able to find a new space. So I guess, they're going to close on the 8th, and there's still time to revive this restaurant. Yes. If anybody has a suitable location.
Start a petition, do whatever you need to do.
Let us know, and we will make sure Frank and Helen's doesn't go away.
And if not, someone needs to bottle that dressing. I've already talked to the owners about it. Someone has to do this. So if you are interested in a business venture, bottle that dressing for me. I'll be your biggest customer.
And my thing that I can't stop thinking about, I made my first trip to Brasas over in the Loop.
I've heard so
and
many
had
things.
Their signature item, pollo a la brasa, which is chicken that's cooked over. It's a rotisserie chicken that's finished over very hot charcoal, so it has a nice crispy skin on it. It's lime juice marinated. It has these sweet Peruvian peppers. It's one of the most popular dishes in Peru, as well it should be. Anyway, go to Brasas for this item. It's absolutely delicious. It's not expensive. They sell it half, quarter, and whole chickens. And it's just spectacular. The side dishes, there's one that has a special bean from Peru that comes with garlic rice, which actually counts as one side dish. So as your other side dish that you get, you can have the fried maduros, which is just those things. That's just like, it's so
candy.
Good. It's like candy. It's like dessert. So this is Brasas. It's over in the Loop, and they've got a great ice cream for dessert, Peruvian ice cream that is kind of on the down low. Anyway, it's a really cool place, not very big. There's 2 four tops, I think 3 deuces, and some bar seats. A lot of people take it to go. Chicken a la brasa, pollo a la brasa.
Oh, sounds so good.
We'll be right back. This holiday season, the pop-up cocktail experience Sleigh Shed returns through December 31st as Train Shed at Union Station transforms into a glittering holiday destination. Featuring seasonal cocktails, themed appetizers, and special menu items, it's the ideal spot for company parties and gatherings with friends. For more details, visit trainshed-stl.com.
And now, back to the show.
And today we're talking to Pat Rutherford-Pettine, retired co-owner of Sugary Baking in Dogtown. Pat is the pie expert, the legit OG for pie in town, and one of the most entertaining food and dining personalities for sure around St. Louis. Today, though, we're going to start with pro tips for the beginners, and then we're going to drift into advice for the seasoned pie bakers out there. Pat, welcome to Arch Eats.
I am so glad to be here this morning.
You're so glad to have you. You and I never have a boring discussion, and rarely do we have a short one either, but we'll see what we do today. We're going to let Cheryl lead off the questioning today because she is a novice.
Yes. Well, Pat, I'm so excited to have you here. And I think I said this earlier. I'm going to embarrass myself a little bit. One of the reasons we wanted you on here is because we wanted to give home bakers who are maybe a little intimidated by making pies, baked goods, a little bit of a crash course, a little bit of a safe space, that it's okay, that there is a way to do this. So I was excited to talk to you. I'm mortified to admit this. I have never baked a pie myself. I'm not going to say how old I am. I almost said it. I don't care. I'm 48 years old. I buy my crust at the store. I've always been scared to do it. And I want to learn. And I don't know, but you know how when you don't know enough to even know where to begin, and you see all these recipes and people give their life story, and then, they give YouTube videos and all of this stuff. I can't get there. I'm scared. So
all right.
What would you tell someone like me who wants to do this and just doesn't even know where to begin?
I'm going to preface this with something.
Okay.
My mother bought crust.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So there's hope.
And she would sometime buy the pre-made ones.
Yes.
And sometime buy the one you flip in.
Sure. Looks very fancy that way.
And that's why Pat's a baker. Because at 10, somebody had to make cookies.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a scary thing. And the things that are most important is using butter.
Yes.
Now, my great-grandma, who I baked pie with before too, and my aunt used butter, and she actually taught me because I spent my 13th year summer at her house,
Mm-hmm.
and I learned to sew and bake. Serious stuff. Anyways, my great-grandma used lard, and I would use lard if it wasn't the lard you buy now.
Okay.
The lard you buy at the store is hydrogenated, partially hydrogenated. It's been messed with.
So old-fashioned lard is better than new-fashioned lard.
What you want is leaf lard. And there's nobody here in town that has it. Well, Mac has some for me. We've got some from Mac because he gets it from his pigs.
Well, that was one of my questions. I thought lard was the be-all and end-all. You say butter. Butter is the fat of choice.
If you're not using lard, butter is the fat of choice. Yes, that would be mine. And then we only used butter at the bakery. A lot of people will do a mix of butter and Crisco.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that because Crisco does make it flakier, but it's our thing that we don't use anything that's been hydrogenated.
Is it important to have the butter ice cold?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, we did not do this way at the bakery. We're doing masses of it. But at home and at the bakery, I did this with my scones too. I would take frozen butter and I would grate it.
Grate it. Okay.
And then I'd put it back in the freezer in boxes and it was measured out to certain amounts for me for my scones. But at home, I do the same thing. Then people with old hands and arthritis like me, you don't have to work that butter. It's the easiest way to get the butter incorporated with the flour.
Oh, that's brilliant.
There you go. There's the first pro tip right there.
This is a great tip.
Yes.
And if you're making scones, it's the same way. Those are the choices for you, but butter is the way.
Mm-hmm.
I buy really good butter for certain things.
So European butter? Oh, but not for this.
I buy Kerrygold now because I can get it at Costco.
Sure. Sure. That's a good tip.
But I can go to
Oh,
Restaurant
listening.
Depot and get Plugra. But Plugra is made here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Kerrygold's made in Ireland. So whatever. Yeah.
So where do you get your flour and what kind of flour?
Ah.
How big a secret is that? How big a...
It's no secret now. I mean, the flour we used at the bakery was called King Midas, but we used pastry flour, which wasn't King Midas. We used a pastry flour because, and that's something I want to mention here, the pastry flour, you don't want to use bread flour. You want to use a low protein flour. Bread flour is the higher protein. AP flour, which most people have, is what you can use. But at the bakery, we use pastry flour. And I have pastry flour at home too that I use for it.
Is it easy to find as a home cook?
You can buy pastry flour.
Okay.
It's not cheap. That's the issue. It's not cheap. But I now, like at home, I buy King Arthur, Costco, King Arthur bread, King Arthur AP. That's what I use for regular stuff.
Okay.
I have all kinds of flours.
Sure.
So it's about gluten. The more protein in it, the more gluten is going to get made. So that's the thing that's important here is to not overwork your dough because you're promoting gluten then. The other thing is that you want it in using ice water. Okay. We used a little vinegar in our, and that breaks down the gluten. Vodka will do the same thing. But get your vodka frozen out of the icebox.
Wow, this is pro tip at least number 3.
I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
I'm kind of mixing it up.
This is great. We've heard about vodka being used in fish batters.
Yes.
For the same reason.
And a tempura batter makes it very, very light. And
this morning, I just read an article about using hot water when you make flatbreads. Because it kills the gluten and you want them to be pliable. You can make tortillas with hot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's all gluten's a real big thing in flour. That's a real important thing. So anyways, the reason with the fat, you don't want it, mix it in too much. That's why I like to grate it. So I hardly mix it at all when I grate it. Hardly at all. You see it and you want to see it. When you roll your dough out, you want to see that butter in there.
Okay.
So you don't overwork it. And then what do you do with it? You roll it out.
Well, I refrigerate.
In a ball, in a disc?
No, I make discs.
Okay.
Yeah, I make discs. So it's easier to roll. So I make a little disc, wrap it up in plastic. I actually keep it in the freezer now because then I have it.
And I'll interrupt you there. I know that people freeze dough. How long does it freeze in the freezer? How long is it good for?
They could be there 4 months.
Okay, good.
Easily.
Wow.
So you can make your dough now. Well, you should make it as soon as it's almost Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing in our dough is your salt. Okay. And salt can, in the bread, it can inhibit your yeast a little bit. But salt here, you want to use, and you'll see some people that say kosher salt. If it's a fine kosher salt, yes. But you want a fine salt because you're working it into this dough that doesn't have a lot of water in it. So you want it to disperse it into your dough before you add your water. So it's some people put a little sugar in their dough. It browns it. It adds
caramelizes.
It adds a little browning to it, is what it does. Pick a recipe, give it a try. That's, and that's with anything. Okay. Pie pans.
Oh.
Never even thought of that. There's got to be a secret.
For years, I used glass ones at home. I now have steel ones.
Okay.
The steel conducts better, browns better on the bottom. At the bakery, we could set heat on the bottom and heat on the top differently. You can't do that in your home oven. Or if you have a steel, I have a baking steel. If you put that steel in, that'll make that bottom hotter. You can set things on that steel and it will do that. And a lot of people now have steels for pizza.
Sure.
Glass works second best. And stoneware is horrible. Okay. And I have some people that gave me this fancy stoneware one. I think I put those in the garage.
Maybe they're decorative or something.
I don't have those anymore.
Like for potted plants, succulents.
And you start hot on a lot of oven, a lot of recipes. First, put it in, your heat's higher, you do a higher heat, and then you reduce it.
Okay.
You got to watch out for the top if it's got a crust or even around the edge. And that's why you can't control the top heat and bottom heat in home ovens. But if you put a piece of foil around the top at the end, if I see something's getting too brown at home, I've had to adjust to a weird oven, that's not like the ovens I've known. So I put a piece of foil on top. Sometimes I put a sheet pan on top above it or something to protect it from the direct heat.
Should the home cook use convection if they have convection, or should it just cook in a straight oven?
I don't like to bake in convection. I find that cookies that are baked in convection are always underdone and stuff, but I like a crisp cookie.
So when you bake these crusts, do you blind bake all your pie crust? Do you blind bake any? I guess we should explain what blind baking is.
Blind baking, and I remember we were at the bakery, and at the bakery, we have a 5-gallon bucket full of what we call the pie beans. And those are our pinto beans. And I think we had them for like 5 years until we bought a new bag or something. They get kind of funky and stuff smelling, but they're still working. At home, I have a big jar. Somebody said, "What is that for?" And I said, "Well, when I bake quiche, I have to blind bake. And then I put it back in the oven too. Partially blind bake. The only ones we blind bake ever at the bakery were cream pies, that you weren't going to put back in the oven.
Right. So it's just par baking, basically. It's just so you don't end up with a soggy crust.
You don't get an uncooked crust.
And why do you do, like you said, you do quiche and you do some of your other pies?
I do the quiche that way because I like crust on my quiche. and I'm fanatic about my quiche. But the only ones, like I said, lemon meringue, coconut cream, banana cream, any cream pie, chiffon or something, thing like that. You're going to bake just ahead of time. Yeah. And we always put parchment in and then put the beans.
Okay.
That way you're just lifting the beans out.
Perfect.
Some people use foil, but we had parchment.
Yeah.
And foil's expensive.
Yeah. So you pull the disc, the dough disc out of the freezer or refrigerator. What's your next?
You're going to let it come to room temp a little bit. It's going to be too cold.
Okay.
Now, if you put it in there and maybe only had it in there 30 minutes, maybe okay.
Okay.
But if you put it in and you've got a frozen one, I usually put frozen ones in the refrigerator, thaw them out that way. Then later, they're going to sit out and I feel them. You want to not use a ton of flour, but you got to use flour. It's going to stick.
Okay.
I have a piece of marble now that I got recently that I put on my wood block. I have a total wood block table at home, and I put the marble on now. I haven't done pie dough on that yet, but I like it a lot. I've been doing some other things, and it's easy to clean.
Is it your preferred surface, would you say?
Yeah, it's just easier to clean.
So a wood block works, but a wood block works. Stone block, but a marble block.
The marble releases better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I find.
Yeah.
Yeah, it releases better. But not everybody has it. But maybe at home you've got a granite counter, right? You make space and do it on your granite counter, right? I think it probably is easier for people to do it on that.
And some people chill their pie pan before they put the dough into it. Does that make any sense to you? Does that make any difference? If you've got a glass.
I've never heard that.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many hacks out there that you just wonder how many of them are legit and how many are old wives' tale. I mean, what are as far as I think we've gotten as far as the finished crust in
the filling.
What kind of filling, or what are the secrets? I mean, people pull that cherry stuff out of the can and the apple stuff out of the can and the pumpkin stuff out of the can.
I'm going to take that as a no.
So you look disgusted over there.
You look very disturbed.
I am. And Jim and I talked about, we used at the bakery IQF fruit, which means individually quick frozen, which they sell bags of that at the grocery store.
Sure.
Cherries, apples, peaches, raspberries, whatever. It works great.
So IQF fruit is the secret over anything canned or packaged.
Or as Jimmy said, if you want pit cherries, great, but we're not pitting cherries for what we did.
Yeah.
But I'm going to probably use some fresh apples soon because somebody gives me a whole lot of Granny Smith apples this time of year. I'll probably use those or I'll get them in the freezer somehow too because they give me so many. But IQF is the answer. Now, pumpkin, don't buy the cheap pumpkin. Now, don't buy the mixed pumpkin, but don't buy the cheap brand because there's more water.
Okay.
Okay, that's what we've found. Buy Libby's, Yeah. I can guarantee that's right, And we made a lot of pumpkin. Do mincemeat, a Thanksgiving only. But
what's the biggest selling pie at Sugary? What'd you sell the most of? And let's just take the holidays out of it.
Okay, in general, apple crumb.
Just a classic.
The apple crumb was the apple caramel crumb was the biggest seller. Yeah.
To drizzle the caramel on top?
No, we would drizzle it on the apples and put the crumb on top.
That way the crumb stays nice and crispy, right?
And the caramel's in the apples then.
What is your favorite pie? We have to ask, or do you even have one? Can you even say?
Meringue.
Okay.
Meringue, and I make a killer lemon meringue pie. But at the bakery, it was hard. You can't make that in mass. And we would only have a limited number we would take for. But I make them for certain people that I love dearly. I like tart.
Do you use, I'm assuming, real lemon juice?
Yes.
Do you use the zest in that pie?
Absolutely. And that's the other thing, even in your other fruit pies and stuff, a little lemon juice
picks up
acid does everything in any cooking of any kind. Acid, you always see that on the TV. The chefs say, well, that's true.
Yeah.
Usually with most dishes, you want a little something.
Just kind of lifts it.
Yeah. Thickeners in the fruits. Let's talk about that. Right?
Yes.
Most people use cornstarch. A lot of people still use a little flour in their apple pie or something at the bakery. And you can get it online because I got it. It's called Sure Gel, Instant Sure Gel.
And what is that?
It's a thickener, and you don't have to heat it. So you can add it to your fruit and not have to cook your fruit.
Oh.
So here's a really good tip.
This is a great tip. And you can go right on Amazon and you can get Instant Sure Gel. Okay, comes in a nice little jar, and you don't need to use a lot of it. You'll have to experiment a little bit sometimes with how much to use.
That way your fruit doesn't break down super.
Fruit doesn't break
much.
down. Peaches, right? They always break down so quick.
Yeah.
And I hate that.
Any secret to a good pecan pie?
Oh, this one's special to me because that was my dad's favorite pie. And I love/hate pecan pie. I love pecan pie, but when there's like 2 inches of the goo, I find it just like
too much.
My teeth are going to fall out when I eat it. Like, what is the secret to not feel that you're going to, go into sugar coma?
We made a pretty good pecan pie. We use brown sugar, white sugar, Caro, butter.
Thinner's better. You don't need it deep.
Yeah.
You don't need it.
Oh, it's like custard
it's
goo.
not. I think ours probably the gel was about like that.
Okay.
And I always use halves on that, not pieces on the top. But we'd actually mix it all in, but they float to the top.
Is there a pie that you think is for a novice? Say, I'm ready to do this. I feel confident about my crust. Is there one that you think's a good intro one that would maybe be a little bit more user-friendly for a first timer, more forgiving?
Pumpkin.
Okay.
Really. You don't have to put a top on it. You do have to make sure you cook it far enough or don't cook it too much. And they crack.
How do you prevent them from cracking? That's always the...
Yeah, well, I always used to put a piece of saran on top.
Saran in the oven?
No, after you take it out. After it's cooled and stuff.
So I've seen, lattice always looks so like, ooh, you are put together if you do that.
And it's easy.
What do you think about that? It is
First
easy.
of all, do fat ones.
Okay, fat ones.
And it's very rustic looking.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And you didn't have to do so many.
Yes.
That's my answer to the lattice. And we at the bakery, we would actually roll dough on the sheeter and just cut lattice.
Okay.
Right? With a thing, and then we'd freeze it on sheet pans. So when it was time to do lattice, it was ready.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're not dealing with dough getting too
Super
firm.
pliable dough.
Yeah.
Sure.
Any secrets to my favorite is a crumb topping.
Oh, yeah.
You put crumb topping on any pie and I'm good.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, I just love it. So
Yeah.
is there a secret to that? Sounds like it's not your favorite, but
No, the secret is don't mix your butter and your brown sugar too much in your flour. You want it to be crunchy.
what else you got, Pat? Anything else that we need to talk about?
Please, like, share. Are we forgetting anything?
I want to stress again about the butter. You really want to see those butter pieces because that's what makes it flaky.
Okay.
They form little pockets. Think of it like a croissant. When you put butter between the croissant dough, you're creating these layers that steam and do different things, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said Kerrygold. Would you use Pluger over Kerrygold or?
Yeah, but I go to Costco.
Okay. Okay.
And I still go to Restaurant Depot, but I've gotten hooked on the Kerrygold and I buy unsalted and
That's what I was just going to ask. You know,
Yeah.
like obviously the answer is unsalted. And we've talked a lot about sweet pies,
Savory.
but you brought up pot pies and I know
Oh.
you talked about quiche too. So tell us about savories. I am such a quiche fan. Oh gosh, it's
Me
one of
too.
my favorites.
Me too. You can do anything with quiche.
And do you do it differently than you do sweet?
No, the crust is the same crust.
But
Yeah.
you said you do blind bake your
But I blind bake it.
quiche.
Yeah.
So I guess just final words of encouragement, wisdom, whatever. Tell us to do it.
You got to do it and you got to keep on doing it till you get it right. You're not going to get any better at it if you don't keep trying.
Are you less intimidated now than
I
you
think
were?
so.
I think you should do it.
I think I'm going to do it. I'll report back.
Get some butter, grate, freeze your butter. It's easier to grate when it's frozen.
Mhm.
Okay.
It sounds like the big tip, the main tip.
Yeah, I like it. It works for me.
Oh, this is good stuff.
Retired from sugary, but not retired from baking. That's Pat Rutherford-Pettine. Thank you so much for joining us today on Arch Eats. This won't be the last time. We're going to do this again because you and I and Cheryl can talk all day. For those of you who haven't had enough pie, we have some pie recommendations from restaurants and from bakery shops. We're going to do it rapid fire style because, again, there's too many to do. We could get in the weeds very easily. Go ahead and start, Cheryl.
Yeah, well, and I am inspired to do my own this year. I think I'm going to try. Chances are I'm going to screw it up, so I'll probably have to hit one of these shops up. Let's be honest here. So I can't think of pies without thinking of pint size. And I know you mentioned that you love a good crumb topping. To me, pint size does crumb toppings on their pies and like little desserts and stuff that they do there just better than anyone. Longtime owners, Christy and Nancy, sold it this summer, but the new owners are keeping it up and running and they do awesome pies. Like Pat, they believe in butter. And, you know, I mean, who doesn't? If we all need something to believe in, let it be butter. Their pecan is just legendary. I love it because as we talked about with that goo, there's a little less sticky and cloyingly sweet. They do a pumpkin. They also do a fantastic sweet potato there. So highly recommend pint size. Since we're doing rapid fire, you can't say pie without Blue Owl in Kimswick. Blue Owl is legendary for all of its pies, but especially its 9-inch high, levy high apple pie. It's a caramel apple pie. It basically is layers and layers and layers of apples that are baked into this dome-like shell. And that dome, which is pie crust, is covered in caramel and pecans. So you kind of crack into it and then you get the apple filling in there. That's a fantastic one. Helfers and Florissant. You know, we're going rapid fire here. This is a staple of my childhood. Think baptism and first communion sheet cakes here, whipped cream cakes. It is the place to be, but they do magnificent pies as well. They do these whipped cream pies. Their Black Forest one is out of this world. And a lot of their pies, what we typically think of with meringues, like a lemon meringue, coconut cream, they will also do a whipped cream version of that as well. So absolutely fantastic. Fetterhofers, You may not know the name, but you certainly know the sign that is almost as legendary in St. Louis as the Arch. Okay, maybe that's going a little far, but it's that vintage sign, probably 60 years old, baker in a floppy hat, right there in the heart of Afton on Gravois. They also are those sheet cakes, stolens, danishes. They even make donuts there, but their pies are fantastic too. They have a turtle whipped cream pie that's absolutely legendary. And the fun thing about them is they do sheet pies. We talk about sheet cakes. They do sheet pies. They will do them in half sheet or full sheet. I actually talked to the bakers. I said, sheet pie, what are you talking about? They said, it's exactly what you think. They do a pie crust in a sheet pan, so not super deep. And then they fill it with cherry, apple, mostly the fruit fillings on there, top it with a little crumb, call it a day.
Delicious.
It's fantastic. The last one on my list, this is something you might have to just order like 10 of them if you're going to a holiday gathering, because it's not a bakery per se, but my favorite pie in all of St. Louis is Adara's Amaretto Cream Pie. Tastes like Italian wedding cookies on the bottom, loads of whipped cream, that glorious amaretto flavoring throughout. Out of this world. Oh, and I'm sorry, we are mispronouncing this. Edera. Edera.
Here we go.
Yes. Did we not learn our lesson?
And the former restaurant where Edera is was Scape, and Scape had a banana cream pie for two that was legendary. People would come in just for that. So Edera is picking up that torch.
Yeah, this is a riff on that
with a new pie.
Mm-hmm. So George, your quick hits. What's on your list?
So I'm going to go with the oldest French pastry shop. Stand by.
To what do we owe this on? Big George. What's this? Oh my God, what are these? George, what have you done?
I'm going to start off with the oldest French pastry shop in the city. This is from Le Bon Boucher. And while I talk about it, Cheryl is going to be eating some of their goodies. That's a 4-inch.
I'm so spoiled.
4-inch mini pie. They have them there for instant pickup. They've got them in like 10 or 12 flavors right there. That's something you really don't need to order in advance. But if you want a bigger pie, I would order 20. You could order 20 varieties of pies in the standard size. But there's all kinds of different flavors. They've got a pumpkin pecan for the holiday. They've got a plum custard for the holiday. And it's the best place in town, I think, for one of those giant towering fruit tarts. You know, those fresh fruit tarts that come in. There's a 9-inch monster size all the way down to a 2.5-inch mini if that's what you want. But anyway, at Le Bon Boucher, there's 7 bakery cases, the most in the city for sure. It's daunting when you walk in, but lots of pies, lots of other goodies. How's that pie over there, Cheryl? She's got a mouthful, but so that was
George, I would love to riff on everything that you're saying, but I'm too busy stuffing.
I know. I thought
my face with pie here. This blueberry one is fantastic.
It's a blueberry custard. They've got custard pies, all shapes and sizes.
The apple's
That's
great
an apple crumb.
Gosh, this is wonderful. And I know you love a good crumb. So.
I do. So let's move over to Sugar Fire Pie. That place is a riot. It's fun to go to. It's 10 years old now. And what they have besides the regulars or the occasional pies, that pecan pie chocolate cake. Do you know what I'm talking about? This thing called a pake. It's a pecan pie baked inside of a chocolate cake.
Like a turducken or something?
Yes, it's the turducken of pies.
Nice.
They also make a cherry pie baked inside of a chocolate cake. They also make a stack pie where they put several pies on top of each other, glued together with a bit of icing. So you've got this 3-layer pie. Like Carolyn, the owner, says you can get all your Thanksgiving favorites in one pie.
Oh my goodness. So you could do like a pecan, pumpkin, and apple or something?
Exactly. And that's what they do. They're not available there all the time, so you have to check it out. But those things are so fun. They do a gooey butter stack pie, 3 layers of gooey butters. And they also offer, now they've got mini pie tarts, which are fun. They offer mix and match pies where you can get 6 different slices that they kind of form together into a pie shape, divided by, like parchment paper. So it looks like a pie, but it's just 6 different types of pie. And what I didn't know, this is maybe something for you, Cheryl, you can get a take and bake pie crust in 3 different varieties, just in case you don't have it in you.
Just in case, exactly. Or in the more likely event that you definitely mess something up.
Right. So that's from Sugar Fire Pie. Great fun place over in Olivet. Down in Soulard, have you been down to Mauki's Bakery and Country Store?
I have not, but I keep hearing about this.
It's like this hidden gem for breakfast and for lunch and for brunch, but they've really got great pies there too. They're big, giant 10-inch pies, and their specialties are the fresh fruit pies, blueberries, blackberries. And I just learned that their fruit pies outsell their pumpkin pies at Thanksgiving.
Wow.
So this place is known for its fruit pies. That's Mauki's down in Soulard. Out in O'Fallon, Missouri, is a place called Pie on the Fly.
Oh, that's fun.
It's airplane themed. There's literal props on the wall. And, it's cute. They're grounded on Sunday and Monday when they're closed. But they have an oatmeal cream pie. It's not really a pie, but that's their specialty. They have a pumpkin pretzel caramel mini pie. Should I say that again?
You've got to be kidding me.
Pumpkin pretzel caramel mini pie. It's about 4 inches. There's a little whipped cream on top. This is a seasonal pie. This is out in O'Fallon, Missouri, worth the drive from St. Louis just to go out and get a couple of these guys. The order form is a little wonky online. You don't see a menu, but there is an order form. You can order 15 different pies with 3 different crusts and 4 different toppings. So you can kind of custom make your pie. I would definitely order a pie in advance from this place, especially if you're driving out there. You don't want to drive out there and have no pie available. Order in advance. Pie on the Fly, O'Fallon. This place, I can't say enough about. Parkmore in Webster Groves. Always known for its pies. The current owner, Frank Romano, picked up that torch, still known for its pies. He takes a cherry pie and mixes Michigan tart cherries with that kind of commercial cherry filling, which is always too sweet. So he takes some of the sweetness out of it.
He kind of cuts it, which is really nice.
He'll take roasted and strained fresh pumpkin and mix it in with the commercial stuff, which he said you have to do because that's got the spice in it. That has the flavor in it that people are used to. If he would make a pumpkin pie from straight pumpkins, people wouldn't like it.
Oh, no, not at all. Does he do an onion ring pie? I know their onion rings are so good.
He'll mix fresh peaches from Eckert's with canned peaches. And he does that because of the syrup. He goes, you need the syrup for the texture and the taste. Anyway, basically what he does is he calls it gases things up. He changes every menu item just a little bit. And every menu item at Parkmore has a story, and these pies are no different.
I love it.
Just keep in mind at Thanksgiving, he'll probably shut ordering down a week in advance because he said come Tuesday of Thanksgiving week, the kitchen and every hallway is full of rolling racks full of pie boxes.
Yeah, these are definitely places that you need to order this well in advance.
Most of these places, they like 48 hours. And at Thanksgiving, I would give them a week. Places like the Smokehouse Market out in Chesterfield, they've got, they're big into apple pies out there, 3 different kinds of apple pies. And what I like to get out there are those pints and quarts of cinnamon ice cream from Ronnie's.
Oh, yes.
And that's one of their signatures is that apple pie with a big scoop of cinnamon ice cream.
Doesn't get better. That with a side of smoked shrimp for an appetizer,
hey,
you are set.
There you go. And the last one, don't forget about Cravings in Webster Groves. Cravings does, in November, a layered pumpkin mousse pie with walnuts. That's kind of a below-the-radar place for some reason.
Yeah.
They've been there forever. They make incredible pastries and pies. He makes a deep dish apple. They make a derby pie. They make these little apple galettes, which are kind of individuals. Anyway, Cravings in Webster, don't forget about that place. Well, that's about as rapid fire as I could possibly make it.
You found the way to shut me up is by putting pie in front of me. So maybe we'll just have to do that from here on out.
So we will go right into today's micro rant. Is kind of a pie rant, kind of a dessert rant. I think that restaurants need to put their desserts online.
I agree so much.
Adara's pie is one perfect example. That would bring people in the door, just like the banana cream pie used to do at Scape. again, we're big on making it easy for restaurant guys. We want them all to be successful. We want them all to make money. And this is a no-brainer. If you have a signature dessert, put it online, sell it. That particular ice cream over at Brasas, it's the only Peruvian ice cream in town. It's homemade. They could really push this Peruvian ice cream that they have. It's unique in town. It's made from a lucuma fruit, which is a Peruvian fruit that looks like a cross between an avocado and a mango, but it tastes like a roasted caramelized sweet potato. This is an ice cream, and I'm telling you, it's worth going to, even if you don't eat the pollo a la brasa. Anyway, restaurants, put your desserts on your online menu, and you never know what's going to lure a customer in. That's our advice this week. That's this week's Arch Eats. Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us and share with your friends. We always provide links in the show notes for everything you heard about today. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and follow along on Instagram at St. Louis Mag. And feel free to give us a follow personally at George Mahey and Cheryl A. Bear.
If you loved what you heard, show us some love by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. And if you're hungry for even more content, you can subscribe to our dining newsletters for the freshest coverage on the local restaurant and culinary scene.
That's it for this week. Best dishes, and see you next time.